Eyes.
Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome once again to another modern sales meltdown with David Treacle Chernick and Gareth Wax, the man with many purple hats. Good morning to you all. It's the day after my birthday, and I still seem to be a little bit worse for wear. That's my excuse, and I'm sticking with it. We talk about weird and wonderful and often straightforward ways in which you can improve your sales. Today's is no different. Today's topic is sell yourself, get hired. What do you mean by that, David?
I've had quite a few conversations recently with predominantly, but not just, Gen Zers who are at the early stages or about to enter the early stages of their careers. And it sort of reminds me of the days when I used to do job hunting myself, and how, you know, it's often the experience that salespeople, people with good sales skills, end up being the best at job seeking. Obviously, why? Because they're selling themselves. You know, right. Some people, when they're doing sales, are always just say, "Well, we're always selling ourselves." You know, we'd be selling a product, but we're really selling ourselves. And I ask these people, mainly youngsters, but as I say, not just. So, you know, what are you doing? And, you know, generally what they are doing is they are applying for advertised positions, and they are complaining that they are one of 200 people going for each place, and how it's a numbers game and it's disappointing, and they don't hear back from people, or they might make it through to the interview and then, you know, they get rejected, and they're sort of scattergunning it. They're looking for all of the different job openings. Many of them are going to agencies and all of this kind of stuff. Right. And although a lot of them are not that responsive to real world experiences of successful job seekers, you know, some of them, you know, are open to the idea of, oh, maybe there is a better way. They tend to be advised not by professionals or by people who know how to do it, but by people like their parents.
Yes. Yeah. Who often are making comparisons to the conditions within which they were job seeking back in the day.
Back in the day, 30 years ago, typically. And, you know, and or they're just doing what their friends are doing, or they're doing what their university suggested that they do. You know, they're spending a huge amount of time filling in application forms and really sort of honing their application form writing skills and using ChatGPT to come up with the best text and all of this kind of stuff. You know, and, you know, and it's, and then, you know, these are all deserving people. They've worked hard so far to get something. They might have had, you know, a few sort of hiccups along the way, including COVID, and, you know, spent the first part of their degree, you know, doing it all on Zoom and, you know, all that kind of stuff.
I do.
And so I thought I'd share some of the ways that successful job seekers are using effectively sales skills in order to get those jobs.
Yeah, I think you've got to look upon those jobs as opportunities, and that they are time related, they are attitude related, and your job, pun intended, is to take an opportunity and give it your all. Treat each one as if it's the only one you've got.
Yeah. So rather than spending a lot of time on sort of sales techniques, I thought I could focus a bit more on the actual strategy of doing it, because from my experience and my observations, getting the strategy right is the most influential factor. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. And the strategy. Yeah. So the strategy that they're deploying at the moment, as I say, is they're looking for mainly advertised positions and schemes and, you know, that kind of thing. And then they are filling in the application forms, and, you know, it's a bit of a soul destroying thing. They are literally, I mean, I was talking to one the other day or the other week, who'd filled in hundreds over a period of a couple of years.
Right.
You know,
and did you say to him it must have been absolutely soul destroying? I mean, did they report it that it was making them feel less of a person?
Yeah, they all. I mean, it is soul destroying. It's a grind. They recognise the grind, and actually, I take my hats off to them because the grind is part of it. You know, being able to, you know, as we've said on this show many times before, you've got to do your daily press ups. You know, you've got to do those things that most people find uncomfortable, that are uncomfortable, but if you turn them into a habit, they become less uncomfortable and they just become like, you know, digging the earth.
Yes, sometimes it's just a repetitive.
Yeah, but it's what you're repeating, so you can optimize that grind. Yeah, okay. I often use the analogy. I might have used it on the show that, and this is perhaps more relevant for Gen Zers as well. Is that, you know, a lot of them are paying much more attention to their physical health than we used to when we were their age, right? They're in the gym, they're working on their, you know, muscles and all of that kind of thing. Some of them doing quite well. And the analogy I use here is, this is just for the grind bit. This is not the strategy, which I do want to come on to. But the grind is simply that there's a difference between those people that want to have big biceps and the ones that and don't get them, and the ones that want those biceps and do get them, right? So there's two main factors here. One is the people that do, I mean, the repetitive exercise of this, yeah,
right,
gets those bicep muscles. So A, you've actually got to go and do that regularly. Yeah. And the second thing, B, is that you can optimize it, right? It's not just a case of repeatedly, you know, curling your wrists.
Yes.
You know, tuck your core in, tighten your core. You know, tuck your elbows in and isolate those muscle groups so that you really are sort of feeling that. But maybe, and I don't know if this is the case because I don't do this exercise, but maybe different angles. So you really sort of get a nice rounded, strong muscle. And if you focus on it in a mindful way, you tuck that core in and you really sort of isolate those muscle groups and you tuck those elbows in, you keep them stationary and you do that. You know, 10 of those is going to be worth more than 10 of these, right? And 10 of these is going to be worth more than not doing it at all.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So yes, there is the grind, and yes, there is the optimization of it to do it effectively. All right. So just put that out there, that it is, you know, there's no avoiding having to pick up the phone or fill in forms or write letters and that kind of thing.
No, there's no quick and easy route that's going to get you past some of those necessary press ups, as you
Correct.
say.
Right. Let's get to the strategy.
All right.
If you are following a strategy where you are applying for advertised positions, know that you are going to be one of 200 people going for each position.
I would say more than that at the moment, but yes.
Well, it depends on the role, but yeah, okay. Absolutely. So yes, in that case, you are going to have to apply for 200 just before the law of averages means you'll get one. Yeah. And you can just break that down. If you did 2 a week, that's a year's worth of work of applying for jobs. Or you can do what we do in sales, right? And in sales and marketing, you know, we're not doing that scattergun approach. Well, some people are, but we don't do that. What we do,
laser focus.
Laser focus, you got it. We'll write down a list of people or employers who we want to work for, yeah, purposefully. How do you do that list? Well, you sit down in front of a desktop, yeah, and you do some desk research. Who would be ideal employers for me? Okay, and you can segment it. You can, you know, you can use all different variables. For example, you might want to use location. You might want to use industry. You might want to use the actual competencies, the actual type of job, what's involved in the job. Yeah, you might want to specify that it's part of a graduate scheme, for example. Yeah, but do that donkey work. Do that desk research and come up with a list. Now, how long does that list need to be? Pretty long, right? In sales, we use ratios like a 3-to-1 ratio of people who will convert to becoming an actual paying client once they have got a quote that they have asked for, right?
That's the critical part, by the way, that they've asked for that quote.
Yeah. You don't just like send out quotes and 1 in 3 will turn into
people do. People send out loads of quotes and assume that they can then assume those kind of conversion stats. It has to.
There is also a ratio.
Yeah.
There is also a ratio of about 3 to 1, typically, if you're doing it well, of people who ask for that quote from a sales conversation, or an interview, you could call it. Okay, so out of every interview that you do, perhaps 1 in 10 will turn into the actual job. Perhaps 1 in 3 will turn into an offer, and then out of those 1 in 3 that turn into an offer, or a sort of an advanced conversation along those lines, 1 in 3 will end up with a job starting at the time that you need it to start. Yeah, it might be that they'll hire you in a year, but that's no good to you. You want it to start now, so it's going to be about 1 in 10. So you want to have about 10 interviews, right? To get to an interview, there's probably about a 10 to 1 ratio, okay, of applications. Yeah, if they are targeted applications, not a scattergun application.
Right.
All right. So there you're talking about a significant number of emails or applications or approaches, that kind of thing. So it's still quite a lot. However, you're not waiting until you finish the task before you get an offer. Some people will get an offer quicker. Some people get an offer. Yeah, but on average, that's how long it takes. Okay. Right. Another ratio to bear in mind is that we're going to be making prospective calls and contacts with people. We're going to be reaching out. This is an outbound exercise. Okay. And to reach somebody, and we know this in sales, if you're doing it fairly well, it takes about 6 attempts to reach one person. Yeah, 6 attempts. So a combination of a phone call, an email, a letter, a DM, a connection on LinkedIn, that kind of thing, right? Before you'll get through to the person, typically. Yeah, of course, some will pick up the phone straight away or reply to your email straight away, but others might take 6.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is, again, this sort of refers to the grind, but this is part of the strategy. So you come up with your list. How many need to be on that list? Well, from what I've just said, could be 50. Yeah, well, 50 potential employers.
I suspect more, but
or 100, but 100 is a big number. Once you've got 50, this is what I find in sales as well, is that when you've got your initial 50, or sometimes even fewer, as you're going through that list, more names will pop out and you'll add that to your list. So I would suggest opening up a spreadsheet and having in column 1 the name of the employer, right? Then you need to find out, and this is all part of desk research, the name of the person who would be the hiring manager. I'm not talking about the HR department. I'm not talking about the recruitment department. I'm not talking about info at. Yeah, I'm talking about find the name of the person in that organization or people in that organization who would be the people you would end up working for.
Right.
Yeah. So if you're looking for a job in sales, find out the name of the sales director. If you're looking for a job in operations, find out the name of the operations director. Yeah. If you can't be asked to do all of that, find out the name of the MD. Okay. Chief executive. You are going to reach out to that person with a pitch. Okay. So make your pitch good. Write it down. Think about what's important to that person and make this request. It's the request for a conversation. That's it. You're not writing to them if you've got any jobs going. Chances are, if they do have any jobs going, they're already advertised.
Right.
And then you'll be back into that whole 1 in 200. Yeah. So you're asking for a conversation. Yeah, it's a conversation about your career, but really you're looking for a quick conversation to pick their brains about how they might be able to go about getting a job in that organization or in that type of role, perhaps even somewhere else. We are counting here on the innate human yearning to be helpful to others. And you'll find that most senior managers want to be helpful, especially.
Yes, it's amazing. A lot of young people assume that they don't, that they just see them as peons or ants. But in actual fact, especially if you write it in such a way that doesn't appear too creepy, but at the same time, you're saying, I am appealing for help. You may find that a lot of them will react positively.
Of course. And many of them will be parents themselves. And and it's a cool thing. If a young person wants to write to you, or it doesn't even have to be a young person, but anybody writes to you and asks you specifically for your help, just to give some pointers, or for a few minutes conversation, to give them some tips, share some know-how, anything like that, which is what you're genuinely asking for here. Yeah. Right. And in the course of that conversation, of course, if there are openings in that organization, you'd be lucky, but they might be able to refer you on, and they would be only too glad to refer you to their mate who does a similar job in a similar company, who they think might need your help. Or again, this is worst case scenario. Well, we're not hiring at the moment, but it's good that you gave me a call now. Come and have a chat with me, because probably over the summer is when we usually hire people for this sort of work.
I remember when I was still working, and this is going in that field or in IT, I did something very similar. I was very frustrated. I couldn't get hold of a job. This is early on, before I had any kind of reputation, and I found someone. I got their number, I think, from a directory. I gave them a call and rang up and said, "Hello there. I'm really frustrated. I want to talk to someone just like you, but I'm finding it really difficult to find them. And all I want to do is pick their brains." They created a job for me because they liked me. Now, if you sit on your hands doing nothing and you don't bother reaching out to people, you'll never know. But if you do this a few times, and I know it can get a bit jaded if you're having the similar conversations a lot, but if you do this a few times, you may well find someone actually likes your character, likes your gumption, likes your moxie, and will take that and say,
"Yeah, we like people with a bit of spunk." 100%. And actually, the discomfort, I don't think so much is about becoming jaded and having to do the thing repetitively. I think the biggest hurdle to overcome is the fear of doing it. It's uncomfortable, right? You've probably not done it before. You've not walked up to strangers and had those conversations. And, it was easier for us when we were kids, because direct conversations were a more normal form of communication, right? But these days, it's more
because the internet wasn't in the way it is now, and most people seem to make their first approaches now via email or via Messenger, and here you are breaking that routine by actually calling someone and speaking to them.
We can still email, we can still do all of those things, but phoning up, the receptionist will answer, or some other call answerer will answer. Know that that's going to be them. Ask to speak to the person. They probably won't be available. Get their email, say, is it all right? Explain to that person why you wanted to call that person. See if you can get their email, write them an email. If you can't, write them a letter. I mean, how many letters do you see these days? None, hardly any.
Can I say to everybody who's going to do this, who's going to take our words, first of all, it may not go well the first time. It might go horrendously. It doesn't mean that it won't go well some of the time. And the last thing is always kill them with kindness. Just be charming. Be charming. It don't sound bored, offhand, or like you're beaten. Put your glad rags on and be charming, because this could be the one person who could be the fundament of your career.
Yeah, and there will be. We get jobs. More people get jobs through somebody that they know or they met than applied through an agency or to an advertised position, right? That is just data. And as a final pro tip, you said to, what did you use when you were talking about charm to, is update your LinkedIn. So you've got your CV online. Yeah, and then you've got somewhere to point to.
Well, as a LinkedIn person, I'm just going to give a quick pro tip of that. Is they're only going to look at your banner, your picture, and your headline. Everything else is irrelevant at this stage. Make your banner so it says your personal mission statement. Make sure it says doing X to help Y achieve Z. So I don't know, working with people like you to make your business brilliant and to get me experience. I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, it's got to interrupt the routine. If it's the same as everybody else, then it'll be like so much white noise. And in your headline, which is the only real searchable bit at this stage, just indicate in there what it is you're really looking for. Well, and just make it so they can, within the first 4 or 5 seconds of hitting your profile, they know what it is you're about. Don't put it all in beautiful prose in your about section. Nobody's going to get there at this stage. All they want to know is right at the beginning, is this kind of character I can work with? But anyway, look, I think
and connect to all those people that you speak to.
Unusually, we've gone way over time. We never do that. Thank you so much, David Chernick, for your good thoughts and ideas. And to anybody out there, please follow us, because we are trying to build this channel. We're constantly giving out good stuff. And I think it would be high time that you dipped in some of the previous ones. I'm going to be converting a lot of them into short form vertical videos. So you'll see some of that popping up. Do watch us. But until next time, keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and look after that mental health. Goodbye.
Ciao, ciao.